Alright guys, welcome back to another build guide. Today we're going to go over the DK tank. This is going to be more of a basic template tank that you can take into 4-man dungeons, you can take into trials, arenas. It's going to work perfectly fine for you. There's a lot of customization you can do for it. It's just stuff that suits your playstyle, stuff that might be suit the trial more, but you can basically take this build anywhere and be completely fine and do completely everything that you need to do in the trial or dungeon. Let's go over attributes. As you can see, I have 64 points in health, which is giving me about 38k health. You can allocate these however you want, depending on your playstyle, what you're doing, if you're main tanking, if you're off tanking. If you're off tanking, you might want more in stamina, because you might be doing more roll dodging, because you might be in medium armor. Basically, a lot of these until you feel comfortable. If you need more magicka than 19k, put more in magicka. If you need more stamina than 22k, put more in stamina. Otherwise, you know, the safe bet is just go in health. You can't go wrong with health. And for me personally, I don't need more stamina and magicka. I don't run out. I don't have to spam balance that often. Again, this also does apply to what race you're on. Since I am an Argonian, I do get magicka as a passive. So if you're running on something like 14, 15k magicka, I would recommend putting points into magicka. You want a decent sized magic pool. And on the other hand, if you are tanking on something like I said, like a Breton or something, you might want to put points in stamina, because you always, depending on what you're doing, you always want to have more stamina than magicka. So when you take a synergy that gives you resources back, it's going to give you that more stamina. But the basic premise here is put points into magicka and stamina until you're comfortable, you're not going to run out of them, and then just dump the rest in health. You can't really go wrong with it. So next, food and Mundus. Really simple again. The Mundus really depends on what you're doing, your playstyle, what trial you're in. For example, if you are off tanking in VAS, for example, you might want to go the steed for more speed, because you're running around a lot. You need to stack adds really fast. If you're main tanking and, for example, you're in kinds, you might want a lot of health, because you might not want to roll dodge that much. You might go for the Lord, because that's going to give you a lot of health. However, what I use 90% of the time is the Atronach, just to give me that more magic recovery. Just means I don't have to use balance as much. Especially if I'm going staff backbar, I'm casting blockade a lot, I might be chaining a lot in ad pulls and stuff. So just having that extra magic recovery is nice. But like I say, if I'm doing kinds or something and I'm main tanking, I might go Lord for the extra health. If I'm off tanking Asylum, I'll go Steed for more speed, just so it makes stacking the ads a lot easier. It makes the fight a lot smoother. So again, it really depends on where you are, what your role is, and what you want to do. If you just want to stand there, tank, and spam your skills, something like the Atronach is going to be really good for you, because you don't have to use balance that much. As for food, very simply, we go Tri-Stat. This is the gold Tri-Stat, the Bewitched Sugar Skulls. This gives slightly more health, stamina, and magicka, but the main thing it does is it's going to give you that health recovery. Now, before, when we were a vamp, this really didn't matter, because you lost a lot of that health recovery to being a vamp. Now we're actually at 1k health recovery, which I always say, don't focus too much on health recovery. It's not going to save your life. However, having about 1k here, it's just a passive heal that's always there. It's always nice. It's not going to save your life. It's nothing you can rely on, but it is nice. That being said, if you don't want to use Bewitched Sugar Skulls, you don't want to spend the money on it, or you don't have the recipe, normal Tri-Stat, the long fin, it works just as fine. You're not going to notice basically any difference. Okay, so now we're going to move on to gear. Now, again, the TLDR for tanks is you're going to need a lot of sets. If you're off tanking especially, you're going to need way more sets than a main tank is going to need, because you might need to change what you're doing at a moment's notice depending on what group you're in. If you're in a full stamina group, you might want to be running Hircines. If you're in a full magic group, you might want to run Worm. There's a lot of sets that you need for tanking. However, for main tanking, like I said, this is just going to be a template guide. So the gear that I'm wearing now, you can use every dungeon, every arena, every trial. You can use this on basically every boss, and it's going to do the job. So, monster set. Tremor scale. So this got changed recently. It now reduces the physical resistance of enemies hit by 2,311. Now, not many people know this is actually an AoE debuff. So you actually will use this in trash as well. So basically, you taunt an enemy, The big Doom Ripper comes from the ground, does a big bite, and anyone damaged by this bite, as I said, it's an AoE, is going to get this. If you're really, really, really good at keeping it up, your staminas can drop sharp and go precise. However, I like to think of this is there to help the downtime of Alkosh. You don't rely on it, but it's nice to have. But like I said, if you're a wizard and can keep this up like 90% plus, sure, your stams can drop sharp, or they can drop points in penning their CP. I use this basically everywhere, and I just use taunt to track it. So I'm looking at my taunt bar as soon as I see 8 seconds have passed, taunt, debuff is reapplied, and you just go on. So you don't really need a separate tracker for it. Next set as a main tank, very obvious, Yornakrin. You are taunting all the time. The 3 set we don't care about. The Minor Aegis, you won't even notice it. It makes no difference. Health, stamina, health, always good stats. But the 5-piece is where we're really focusing on. So whenever you taunt an enemy, you give yourself and 11 group members, so if you're in a raid, that's everyone, minor courage for 15 seconds, increasing weapon and spell damage by 129. This isn't the be-all end-all, this isn't going to make DPS go from 40k to 100k, but it is a consistent buff that you can keep up 100%. If you have 100% taunt, you have basically 100% minor courage uptime. It's not something you have to think about. It's not something you have to worry about. Second set, of course, Alkosh. So again, we're not really bothered about the 2-piece, the 3-piece, or the 4-piece. Weapon crit, we're a tank, we don't care. Weapon damage, might make Alkosh hit a bit harder. Major Slayer, not going to notice it. But the main thing is the 5-piece, not so much the damage, it is the synergy. So when we take a synergy, we reduce the physical and spell resistance of enemies hit by 3010 for 10 seconds. Now this is a cone, very much like Dawnbreaker, so you take a synergy. Whichever way your character is facing, you send out a shockwave, and any enemy hit by this shockwave gets this debuff. Now it lasts for 10 seconds, so you are going to need more than one synergy to keep this up, because synergies have a cooldown of 20 seconds. So if you're in a group and the only synergy you're getting is Orb, the max uptime you can get is 50%, which is not that great. So if your DDs are stealing synergies, shout at them. They shouldn't be doing that. Alkosh is better than Locust Deeds. Alkosh is important. Tanks need to pass too. But yeah, so you really should be receiving more than one synergy. You can keep up 100% basically with 2 synergies. It's just going to require some very precise timing. So as always, the more synergies, the better. You can just spam synergies. You're not going to get the most optimal uptime. There are add-ons out there that track Alkosh, so if you can, try not to take synergies until the debuff is at least at the end of the road. You don't have to wait till it's run out. If it's like 2-3 seconds left, sure, take a synergy. But if you've taken a synergy and 1 second has passed, don't be taking another synergy, okay? For weapons, your front bar, you're going to want Sword and Shield. That's because you want to make use of the Sword and Shield skills. And backbar is always up for debate. I change this on a regular basis depending on what I'm doing, if I'm main tanking, if I'm off tanking, and what trial I'm in. So a lot of the time, I will use a bow. The other times, I will use a stave, either ice or lightning. Most of the time, lightning, if I'm in somewhere where I just really don't want to die. Maybe I'm being lazy, or maybe I'm just like, we're going for an achievement or something. I'll use an ice staff, and that means I get that extra defense when I'm on that back bar. So pros and cons of bow and staff. Staff is you place it down, you place your wall of elements, and as soon as an enemy gets hit, it will get the debuff. The bow, you can use Endless Hail. So Endless Hail has like a 2-second timing period, so it's not going to apply a debuff for the first 2 seconds of the cast, so you have to keep that in mind. However, in my opinion, it's much easier to be precise with Crusher. Basically, if you place Endless Hail right on an enemy, it will always proc Crusher on that enemy, regardless of if other enemies are on like the side, still getting hit by Endless Hail. However, with the staff, with Wall of Elements, it's basically the first enemy hit gets Crusher. So if an ad walks to the side of the boss, but is slightly in front, if an ad walks in front of the boss, they're going to steal that Crusher. If I'm on a boss with a lot of ads, I will tend to use a bow, just so I can keep up that Crusher. For enchants, everywhere I'm going, other than this, because I've been doing kinds recently, so I've just got health here and health here. But usually, I'll be going Tri-Stat everywhere. This is Magicka Stamina Health. You don't need to. You can use these as you see fit. If you want more stamina, just go for stamina. You want magicka, go for magicka. As I said, I've been doing kinds recently, so I've wanted a bit more health. So my 2 pieces here, I just put a max health glyph. This pushed me up to a point where I was comfortable that I wasn't going to get one shot if I missed a roll dodge or something like that. Sturdy everywhere is what I go for, except from apparently I've got infused gauntlets. But yeah, you can go infuse big pieces, 30 small pieces. You don't really need reinforced. You're going to be at resistance cap anyway. I just tend to go sturdy everywhere. I need to change this. For jewelry, again, this comes down to what you're doing. I tend to just go robust just because I don't need more health. Stamina is always nice. I tend to be very dangerous in my stamina. I roll dodge a lot, or I spam skills just because I don't just want to stand there and block. So I might spam some skills. You can go healthy if you want more health, arcane if you want more magicka. Harmony is good. Like I said, if you're off tanking in Asylum, you might want Swift, so you're running faster, stacking those ads better. And then for enchantments, I'm going magicka recovery everywhere, like I said, just so I don't have to use balance as much. You can use whatever enchants you want. You can use the one that makes bashing cheaper if you want to bash a lot for some reason. Block cost reduction is always good, especially if you're new to tanking. You might block more than you should. But like I say, I just go magicka recovery. It helps my sustain. I don't have to balance as much, and I can spam skills if I want. Your main hand, now I'm lazy, I've got Infused Crusher. That's because I still haven't changed it from when stuff got changed. The optimal thing to go is actually Decisive on your front bar, and you can go basically any enchant. You don't really need to go Crusher because you've got Crusher on your back bar. Your back bar should always be infused with Crusher, so you're getting the max uptime, and also you're getting the max efficiency out of your Crusher enchant. You see here it's 2100, whereas here it's 1050, so you can tell which one's going to be better. With Crusher, if there are multiple sources of Crusher, the highest value will always be the one that takes effect. So if you're using it and say like a healer's using it on a staff that isn't infused, don't worry, your infused Crusher will always be the one that gets applied. Now, like I said, there are lots and lots and lots and lots of sets you're going to need. Like you can see over here, I've got Defiled Dragon for if I'm off tanking or if I'm doing trash pulls. Here I've got Ebon. Don't use this as much now. And again, this is more of an off tank set. You're not really going to use this as a main tank because you're basically always going to be using Yolnahkriin because you're always taunting the main boss. Even if you're range tanking, you're still taunting that main boss with a range taunt. So what I'll do is in the description, I will do a list of what I think are the top most important sets you need. Okay, so now we're going to move on to skills, and very much like the gear part is the TLDR is you're going to need a lot of skills. Now, as I said, since this is just a template, I'm going to give you skills that you can basically use anyway. You don't need to change them from boss to boss. There might be a couple specific stuff where you might want to change 1 or 2 skills, but if you want to do any dungeon in the game, you can use this skill bar setup and it'll do everything you want to do. For the generic bar for the template tank, first of all, you've got Pierce Armor. This is mainly your taunt, and it is going to be your main debuff. So when you use it, you taunt the enemy for 15 seconds, and also you're going to apply Major Fracture, Major Breach, reducing the physical and spell resistance by 5,280. You can use the other morph, Ransack. This will only do Major Fracture, so it will only do physical resistance. It will give you a little buff. It's not that noticeable. It's minor protection. It's 8% less damage taken. I like Pierce Armor because if I'm with a group with new healers, they might drop Ellie Drain, and if Ellie Drain is the only source of Major Breach, your Magicka DDs are going to suffer. The other one, Heroic Slash. This is your main buff and debuff. When you use this, you're going to apply Minor Maim to the enemy, reducing the damage done by 15% for 12 seconds. However, you're also going to gain Minor Heroism, granting you 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 12 seconds. This, you just want to keep up 100%. You don't need to overcast this. Overcasting this isn't going to give you more ulti back. Just cast this once every 12 seconds, and you're just going to constantly gain an ulti. Balance. This is my source of Major Resolve, increasing my physical and spell resistance by 5,280. It's also my sustain skill. If I'm dropping low on Magicka, I use this and I get 3,000 Magicka back. Now, if you're new to tanking, this might seem scary. Balance has a, not so much a skill cap, but a usability cap. you don't want to spam this. And you also don't want to use this in a situation where if you use this, it will kill you. I always say, learn to use this early. You might kill yourself at the start, but it's pretty obvious when you can and can't use it. If you're taking a hell of a lot of damage, you obviously can't use it. Now, I've had a couple of people ask me why do I use this, because it reduces healing received. It's only the healing that you do, so you're still being healed by other people for the same amount. It's not going to affect that at all. So if you have a healer spamming you, sure, you can use balance as much as you want. But again, you're not going to want to do that. Green Dragon Blood, this is our main heal, and on this setup, only heal. The lower our health, the better this is. It also gives us some buffs, increasing health recovery, stamina recovery, and healing received. So if you want, you can basically just also keep this up 100% of the time to get that healing received. The main problem I see with people using Green Dragon Blood is they use it when they're on like 80% health, and they go, oh my god, this is crap, it's hardly healing me. Yes, it's hardly healing you because it heals more the less health you have. So if you're spamming it on 80%, you're just going, oh my god, it's not healing me that much, and you've used all your magicka, you're going to get low and you're not going to be able to heal yourself. This is something you want to use if you're like below 50% health. Otherwise, you're not really going to get any benefit out of it. Next is Igneous Shield. This is again utility. It's going to give us a shield, absorb some damage. It's also going to give us Major Mending, increasing our healing done. So the rotation user for healing is Igneous Shield, then Green Dragon Blood. And it's going to make that Green Dragon Blood way more potent. Also, if we go to Earth and Heart, which is where Igneous Shield is, you see down here, when you cast a non-stamina costing Earth and Heart ability, this is Magicka, you restore 990 stamina. Might not seem a lot, but if you do a heavy attack in Igneous Shield, it's going to give you quite a bit of stamina back, so you can also use this as sustain. And also, Mountain's Blessing. So when you cast an Earth and Heart ability, you apply Minor Brutality to your friends, always good for your stamina. But also, if you're in combat, you generate 3 ultimate every 6 seconds. Now, again, that doesn't mean you should be casting this every 6 seconds, but casting it quite often, it's going to help you with your ulti gen. And like I said, since you're a DK, you actually get resources back from your ulti from Battle Roar. When you cast an ulti, you restore 55 health, 46 magicka, 46 stamina for each point. And Horn is 250. So talking about Horn, this is your main ulti. You'll use this 99% of the time. It has the best buffs for the group. It's going to increase everyone's max magicka and max stamina by 10%, more damage. And also, you and your allies gain major force, increasing crit damage by 15%. So, for a long time now, crit damage has been the most overpowered thing in the game. So increasing that crit damage increases the group DPS by a lot. You'll notice groups with high major force uptimes will do a lot more damage than groups with low major force uptimes. Range taunt, you'll use this when you're running into a boss. You'll use this to taunt enemies that are far away from you that you might want to run closer to you. Unrelenting Grip, also known as Chains. This basically pulls enemies in that are far away. So if you're in a big ad pull, you would range taunt the melee ads and they will run to you, and you will chain the range ads, because if you just range taunt the range ads, they're just going to stand at the back shooting you, laughing at you. Next is Choking Talons. This is basically your route. So on ad pulls, you chain everything in, you use this, and enemies aren't going to run away. It's also a source of AoE minor maim. It's also going to give a synergy to your DDs. So basically, on ad pulls, you're chaining everything in, you use this, they can't run away, they do less damage, and your DDs can use a synergy. Magicka DDs will get a lot of damage out of this. Stamina DDs will get Locust Deeds. So it's good to use in trash. Mystic Orb, mainly used as a synergy for your group. It's going to give back stamina to your Stam DDs, Magicka to your Mag DDs. It's also going to do damage on the explosion. That's because we're taking the damage orb. I prefer this one than the healing one because when DDs take it, they're going to get a big boom damage. And then your next one is your flex pot, depending on if you're using a bow or a staff. Since I'm on a bow here, I'm using Endless Hail. If you are going to be using a staff, you will obviously use Elemental Blockade. Both last 14 seconds, so it's just place it down, wait for it to run out, and use it again. However, like I said, with Endless Hail, it has that 2-second delay. So you actually want to cast this every 12 seconds instead of every 14 seconds. And then backbar. horn again. Just so you're double barring this, just so it means whatever bar you're on, if you need to horn, you can horn. You don't have to bar swap to do it and maybe risk dying because you're blocking, and as not many people know, if you bar swap while blocking, you actually drop block. So as for other useful skills, if you are the only DK and you're in a Magicka group, you can take the other morph of Noxious Breath, Engulfing Flames. This applies a debuff that makes the enemy take more fire damage. Now, like I said, if you're really not comfortable with balance, you can take Spiked Armor. This is your other way to get Major Resolve, to get that physical and spell resistance. But like I said, you really should be learning how to use balance early on. Wings, well, Protective Plate, but also known as Wings because of how it looks like. This is great. This reduces damage from projectiles by 50% for 6 seconds. That's brilliant. But the main reason we use Protective Plate is because gain immunity to snares and immobilizations for 2 seconds. You can use this in Hoth to get rid of the snares from the lightning beams, and you can use this on, for example, hard mode Mull. If you are progressing there, you're learning it. This is going to make you take 50% less damage from barrage, so it really does help in situations. Last but most definitely not least, Deep Breath. This is an AoE interrupt. This is an amazing skill in certain situations. For example, on the vampire round in Black Crows, perfect. You can use this, interrupt all the infusers. Likewise in Kynes, you can AoE all the infusers there. Just interrupt them and stop them from empowering all the other ads. I absolutely adore this skill. I use this quite a lot. My least favourite ultimate in the game, Magma Shell. I do not like this skill because people use it in the wrong scenarios. So what it does is it limits all incoming damage to 3% of your max health, which sounds amazing, right? However, if you're getting hit by, let's say, 10 ads who hit you every second for 3% of your max health, that's 30% of your health every second. It's not going to stop you from dying from that. It's going to stop you from dying from really big hits. So if an ad would hit you for 50k, if you use this, it's not going to hit you for 50k. But if you're being bombarded by loads of ads, it's not that great. I'm an old school tank. I don't believe you should use this. I believe you should find ways to survive outside of using this. That being said, if you're in a group where you're on your own, or you've just got really bad healers, sure, go for it, use it. Stone Giant. This is, again, situational depending on the group you're in, depending on how confident you are using it. The main reason we use this is because it's going to apply that stagger. So each hit applies stagger, increasing damage taken by 65 per stack for 6 seconds, and it can stack up to 3 times. And Cinderstorm is more of a utility skill. The heal is alright, and the slow is really good. I'll use this in some cases if I just really don't want ads to move, or if I just want them to be really slow. Shield Discipline, love this. I rate it higher than Magma Armor as a defensive ultimate. It's really cheap, makes you block for free, and also if you're really low on stamina, you just pop this and you can just heavy attack, get all your resources back, and this is going to block for you. Like I say, I prefer this to Magma. Defensive stance, really good, especially if you are range tanking. So for example, if you're range tanking Ice Boss in Sunspire, this is just going to shoot those bolts back at him, make you take basically no damage. It's also going to decrease the amount of damage you take from block and decrease the block cost by 10% if it's just on your bar, which is always just nice. Crushing Shock, ranged interrupt, very important for quite a lot of places actually. You'll know where to use these as soon as you do them. I'm not going to go over every scenario to use them because there's just way too many in this video. It would be like an hour long. Elemental Drain, again, if you're running without a healer and you've got Magickas in your group, you can use this. If you're doing something like Portals in Cloud Rest, you can put this on the group. This applies Major Breach, but the main thing it's there for is Minor Magicka Steal. So your Magicka is going to get quite a lot of sustain from this. It's really nice to use. In armor, you can get either one of these morphs. This is also going to give you physical and spell resistance. I basically use this in Kynes only on the second and last boss for the immovability. Temporal Guard is nice ulti if you just want to put it on your front bar. Whenever you're on your front bar, you're going to get minor protection, reducing your damage taken by 8%. Again, you're never going to use it, so just slotting it here is nice. And of course, if you're not using Ransack, you might benefit from this. Race Against Time. I absolutely adore this skill. I use this absolutely everywhere. Gives you major exposition for 4 seconds. And also, it's going to remove all snares and immobilizations from you and grant you immunity to them for 2 seconds. So again, I use this in Hoth. I use this basically anywhere in trash. If we're just running to the next trash, anywhere that I can be snared, pop this. So in Undaunted, you basically want every skill. Alter, amazing skill. Minor lifesteal. And also, if people drop really low, they can activate the synergy and just heal for 65% of their health. And it's just, use it, forget about it for 30 seconds. Shadow Silk, this is a synergy for Stam DDs, so not only is this going to give them Locust Deeds, it's also going to give them Spiders that actually do does reasonable damage on stamina, does nothing on Magicka, so if your Magicka DDs are taking these, shout at them. Bone Shield is nice, it gives you a shield. The main thing it's there for, again, is the synergy. If you are off tanking, you might run up to the main tank, pop this, they can take the synergy for Alkosh. So, for tanking, you are going to need to do some PvP. You need to get to at least Vigor, which I believe is rank 5. Warhorn is rank 4. Retreating Maneuver got quite a significant nerf. Basically, I will use this at the start of a trial because in every trial, you have to run to get to the first ads anyway. So we pop this and it runs. It's really nice now because if you use a skill, you don't actually drop the movement speed, so that's nice. Resolving Vigor. This is your other heal other than Green Dragon Blood, or you can put it on your back bar for bosses. Say, for example, you don't need Choking Talons on bosses. You can just put Resolving Vigor here. Heal over time. I really like it, and I will use it sometimes instead of Green Dragon Blood if I want healing over time instead of burst healing. Barrier. Some groups adore this. I hate this skill. You'll see some groups doing barrier rotations with like 10 DDs on barrier. I hate this. This is why I have refused to level it on my tank. But yeah, some groups might want you to run it. It can be good in some situations, but sometimes people use it in just the most random places where it's not needed. Purge, you will need to take Efficient Purge because the other morph I think has the same cost as Sea Shield, which is 8,100. So Efficient Purge makes it cheaper. Very good. Very useful in quite a lot of places like Asylum and Mall and stuff like that. Guard, I believe you have to get to level 6. So this is basically you use it on an ally and you take 30% basically of their damage. This particular morph also grants Minor Force. So if I'm off tanking and stuff, I'll use this on usually a Magicka DD so they don't have to use Channel Acceleration. Other times, for example, in Kain's hard mode, you'll use this on the main tank. If you're progressing Maul hard mode, the off tank will use this on the main tank. You can use the other morph in that situation. And then finally, you want to make sure your alchemy is level 50. You want to make sure you want to get that medicinal use so that the effects of your potions last 30% longer. Okay, so now we're going to talk about skills if you're Nightblade tanking. I know a lot of people like Nightblade tanks. They are really, really good at self-sustaining, staying alive. First thing first, Mirage in Assassination, really, really good. This is going to give you Major Evasion and Minor Resolve. This is going to reduce your damage from AoE attacks by 25% and just give you a little bit more physical and spell resistance. This is really good for places like Sunspire because you're basically taking AoE damage everywhere from the Cone Breath, and on the last boss, that breath is going to do even more damage because you're going to get marked. So having Major Evasion is really, really useful. Mark Target is also useful if you are range tanking. So if you're range tanking something, you're not going to be able to go up and apply your debuffs with Pierce Armor. So Mark Target, you're at range, you cast this, and you're going to give that physical and spell reduction. Relentless Focus, at the time of this recording, is really, really good. Each stack is going to reduce your damage taken by 2%. 5 stacks, that's 10% damage reduction. I believe in Stonehearth this is going to be changed, so this might not be used on tanks, but as of the recording of this video, this is a really, really, really good skill to use. You basically just press it once every minute, don't fire the bow, and you're getting 10% damage reduction. It's as simple as that. Shadow, so here is going to be your main, well, one of your main healing skills. So you're going to have Dark Cloak. So this is the other morph of the skill that the PvPers use to go invisible. So we change this, and now we're going to heal ourselves. You see my tooltip says 1997 for every 1 second. That's because I've actually got no gear on this character right now. This can scale up really high. This will actually scale off your max health, so the more health you have, the more this heals. You also gain minor protection while shrouded, reducing your damage taken by 8%. So again, this is why Nightblades are really tanky. They get a source of minor protection, as well as the Grim Focus, giving them an extra 10%. This is a really good heal. I will usually keep this up 100% of the time because I have really good Magicka Sustain. If you haven't got really, really good Magicka Sustain, Just use this if you're in trouble or if you're going to take a big hit or something. I see some tanks using Mass Hysteria in trash pulls. I don't really like it because instead of a fixed CC, enemies will run away, which you really don't want to do. You don't want to spend all your time chaining everything in and then making them run away. If you want to use this, it is technically a CC, but I don't really like it. Some of the group healing you can do is if you take the Refreshing Path, Morph of Path of Darkness, you will do a cone of, well, a line like Wall of Elements of healing. You will have to aim it on your group. It is also there. It can heal yourself as well for 12 seconds. On the front bar, I also like to slot Bolstering Darkness. That's mainly because I use this tank only for Sunspire. I usually DK tank elsewhere, so this is really good. This gives major protection, so if things are going completely wrong on the last boss or something and it's Solitaire, I'll just pop this on the group. It works the same as Nova, and it works the same as the Warden, Northern Storm and stuff, giving major protection. It's your, oh shit, people are going to die, I'm going to try and help them survive skill. Swallow Soul, I like this heal. Stealing enemy's life force, dealing damage and healing for 40% of damage. Now, I kind of like this because I like to have a Siphon ability on my front bar for the Magic Flood, increases your max Magicka by 8% while a Siphon ability is slotted. So that's why I use this over Refreshing Path. I think Refreshing Path will heal you more, but for what I'm doing, I don't need more healing, so I really like this to be on my front bar for that extra Magicka. So the next thing I really like on my back bar, I run Leeching Strikes. Now this is basically just there for sustain. The 106 stamina it gives, it's not much more than Incap, but it's still nice. Also gives you 1,000, you see mine says 1,700 health here. Again, that will go up and down depending on your health, I believe. It's not something to rely on. The main thing is after 20 seconds, you're going to get that 4,270 stamina, which is just over a long fight. Leeching Strikes is nice. If you are Magicka tanking, you can take the other morph, Siphoning, and you'll get Magicka back instead. In trash pulls, you can use Power Extraction. This is basically an inbuilt mending for Nightblade. If an enemy is hit, you reduce their weapon and spell damage by 200 for 8 seconds. The one thing to mention is Nightblade does not have a pull, so you will need to get Silver Leash. Or you can run Swarm Mothers. I don't really like Swarm Mothers. I only really use it in Sunspire, but other than that, if I'm ever doing anything outside of Sunspire, I'm always running Silver Leash. So finally, we're going to go over the Warden skills. There's a lot of Warden tanks out there. I really like Warden tanking. I think they make really good off tanks, and they're absolutely broken in Cloudress just because of one skill, which we'll go over later. Let's start with Growing Swarm. This is just there for the minor vulnerability. So you can take the Stamina Morph or the Magicka Morph. It really doesn't matter. It's whatever you're more comfortable spending. If you have a Warden DD running this or a Warden Healer running this, you don't really need to run this. You can put something else there. Warden actually has a lot of skills that you can use, so if you have a chance to drop this, drop it. The Netch. This is your main sustain skill. So the Bull Netch gives back stamina, and the Betty Netch gives back Magicka. Also, they're really, really good in the sense of it's a free purge. So if you get a debuff on you, you can just press this 1 or 2 times. You're going to get rid of that debuff. It's really, really useful. And finally, Deceptive Predator. So this is going to give you Major Expedition for 6 seconds. Really, really good. It's really good to just zip around, especially like if you're learning Cloudress and you're not super comfortable running from Zamarja points to point. Put this on. It's going to give you that Major Expedition. You can just sprint all the way over. It's also going to give you Minor Evasion, reducing damage from area attacks by 10%, so it's a nice little passive. I don't use this as much as I used to when I was learning to tank on Warden, when I was learning to tank Cloudress. It's really, really, really useful when you're starting out. And if you're doing speed runs, I will usually always put this on my bar just to get that extra speed running. You can run the heal if you want, the ult. I would mainly use this if I was doing 4-man dungeons where I was the only support. Enchanted Growth is another heal. I don't use this very often. Again, maybe only if I'm running in 4-man dungeons. Crypt in Pollen, you can take the other morph, Healing Seed. I actually usually do use Healing Seed. I was just leveling this for if I ever go PvP. Really, really good. This is an AoE that you place. Allies can take a synergy, and it's also going to do a lot of healing. Living Tendrils, I don't use this too often, but I actually like it in certain situations. This is basically going to be whenever they take damage, you heal yourself. It's not really a source of minor lifesteal, it's something else. And also when the vines expire, they also get a big burst of healing. So I like this in situations, but I don't use it that often. Nature's Grasp, again, if I'm downstairs tanking in Cloud Rest and someone gets really low and maybe they're not paying attention, I might use this, especially if someone is learning. Northern Storm is very much like the Nightblade ulti. It's going to give a source of mage protection, reducing damage taken by 30%. It has some extra benefits, like it reduces the movement speed of enemies and increases your magicka, but those are secondary. The only time you would use this is for the major protection, like, oh shit, we need a lot of mitigation. There you go. Expansive Frostcloak. This is an AoE source of major resolve, so not only will it increase your physical and spell resistance, it's also going to increase all of your group's physical and spell resistance. It's better to take this than the other one. The other one gives a minor protection. You can get that from other places. This is going to give all of your group those resistances, making all your group way more tankier. It's really, really good. Gripping Shards. This is Warden's version kind of DK Talons. It's not as effective, but it will snare enemies, make them really slow so they're not going to move out as fast. It also actually does quite a lot of damage because it actually scales off your max health, so you will actually be doing damage. I've had ad pulls in dungeons where I'm reaching 50-60k AoE with this and a couple other skills on full tank setup. Polar Wind. This is one of my favourite heals in the game. I absolutely love this. It has a really big burst heal, and then it also has a little hot on you after. Now, mine only says 7,000 because, again, I have no gear on this character, so this can scale up. I've had ticks of this, like, critting for 20k plus on the initial, and then the heal, it's really, really, really nice. Also, it works kind of like Breath of Life, and it will also heal someone else. So if you're stood next to someone and they need a heal, you can pop this, and again, it's going to give you basically that same initial burst that you give yourself. Next, Shimmering Shield. This is the skill that makes Cloud Rest easy for a tank. This completely mitigates the one-shot heavy attack. Spin a shield of ice around you, absorbing up to, again, mine is very low because I have no gear on, but this will basically make you take 0 damage from Zamarja's heavy attack. It is absolutely brilliant. It's also going to give you major heroism whenever a projectile hits it, and it's going to give you a little bit of magic back, not too much. It's a really, really good skill, and you can use this everywhere. Like if you're tanking in Mol, this will completely save you from Barrage. And finally, Frozen Device. This is your pull on a Warden. You can have 3 AoEs. They look like this. And when an enemy walks into that, it will get pulled to you. I'm not a massive fan of it. I do use it. Multiple reasons I don't like it. 1, you can only have 3 out at a time. And 2, you do not really get to choose which enemy gets pulled. So for example, in somewhere like VMOL Twins, if I'm on the white boss and I want to pull in a white ad, I'll put this down. But if there's a black ad on top of the white ad, for all I know, that black ad's going to get chained to me. And if you've ever done VMOL Twins, you know you don't want a black ad in the white group because they're going to do a lot of damage to the white group. If you're not comfortable using Frozen Device, you can always go and take the other morph of Silver Bolts. And last but not least, we're just going to go over CP. This is a generic CP. Depending on what trial you're in, you might want to change your red CP. You might also sometimes want to change your green CP if you're roll dodging more than blocking, or you're running around more. So let's start with the red CP. In the military, when you go 56 hardy, 56 elemental defender, this is just basically reducing your physical, poison, disease, and all like your magic damage, flame, frost, and stuff. Thick skinned at 66, all damage over time. You're actually going to be taking quite a lot of damage over time as a tank. You're going to get a lot of bleeds on you from people using axes, poisons, and stuff like that. Ironclad 81, reduce all your damage taken from direct damage. Speaks for itself. You get hit in the face, this reduces the damage. And then you have 11 points left over. You can put them in quick recovery for more healing received. This also increases the healing you do to yourself. Or you can put it in heavy armor focus if you're not quite at that resistance cap. 31 in Warlord, reduces the cost of break free. Sprinter, reduces the cost of sprint, especially if you're going for scores and stuff. You're running a lot to the next pack. You want to have as much stamina as when you get there. In Asylum, this is really good because as an off tank, you are sprinting basically 90% of the time to stack those ads. Arcanist increases Magicka recovery. Speaks for itself. The more Magicka you have, the more base Magicka recovery you have, the more this will do. Tenacity increases the Magicka and stamina you get from your heavy attacks. You do not need stamina recovery as a tank, because when you block, your stamina recovery is 0. And again, to get your stamina back, you're going to heavy attack, you're going to use Igneous Shield. So you do not need anything in stamina recovery. Stamina recovery, especially as a main tank, is a dead start. Not really, but it basically is. And if you're off tanking, especially in Asylum, if you're sprinting all the time, again, when you're sprinting, your stamina recovery is 0. So I don't ever put any points into this as a tank. Now, the two most important. Tumbling reduces the cost of roll dodge. As I said, a tank's job is not to just stand there, taunt, and block. You will have to roll dodge some attacks. This helps a lot with sustaining roll dodge. If you're an off tank, you might be in medium armor, so you're also going to get that benefit from the medium armor passive that reduces the cost of roll dodge. But this does help quite a lot. And Shadow Ward reduces the cost of block. Again, I know we're using a lot of sturdy pieces, but this is just the lower you can make your block cost, the easier your life is going to be, especially if you're being wailed on by like 10 or something else. So let's go on to the blue CP. There's only two things you really need. That's Blessed, increases your healing done, and Elfborn increases your critical healing done with magical abilities. This is going to help if you crit with Green Dragonblood. The rest of your points you can put basically wherever you want. I have them spread out in a semi-DD orientated stuff. Got some in Mighty, some in Pen. Precise is also going to help if you crit with Vigor. But as I said, when I'm questing and stuff, I'm not questing as a tank. I'm going around doing dailies and stuff. I've got a DD set up, so this just helps slightly. And it is going to slightly increase your damage from stuff like Hail and stuff like Wall of Elements and stuff. But these you can put these points wherever you want. If you want to put them in Staff Expert, in Shattering Blows for some weird reason, go for it. These points are basically redundant. There is no point put these up to 100 because you get to 15% and put in 24 points, which is useless. 1% for 24 points, useless. Take this build, you can use it any way you want, but please customize this to however suits your playstyle. Tanking is 100% personal. There you can ask the same question to 10 tanks and you can get 10 different answers. Figure out how you want to tank, figure out your playstyle, and use skills, attributes, whatever you want to use according to how you want to do it. There is no real right or wrong way of doing it as long as you are doing the job that you are meant to do. So thank you again for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.